Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith, Pennsylvania editor for the Center Square, and joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Anthony Hennon. This week, Philadelphia got a new mayor, but it sounds like she's addressing some very old problems in the city. One of those is the sky-high rents that is really keeping it unaffordable to live in Philadelphia. So, Anthony, tell us a little bit more about what the new mayor, Cherelle Parker, plans to do.
Yeah, so this is a problem that we see across Pennsylvania, but it seems especially relevant to southeastern Pennsylvania, where we see a lot of people moving in, especially around the Philadelphia collar counties. Statewide, we've seen experts estimate that the Pennsylvania has a shortage of almost 100,000 housing units. We see this in a lot of rural areas as well, where service workers struggle to find affordable apartments. So Cherelle Parker's plan that she announced, her first kind of 100-day action plan here, she touches on a lot of things. She touches on the economy, she touches on quality of life issues and public safety, but she's also focused on housing, and she's pledged to enable more housing to get built, and also announced that she's ordered the city to have a plan for affordable luxury for low and middle income families. A lot of these problems simply start with, on the one hand, we've seen labor shortages and just simply costs rise when you don't have enough workers out there to, put up the house, to add in the plumbing, to do all this other stuff. But we also see a longstanding issue of bureaucratic delays, of waiting months for permits, of waiting more months for inspections. Basically, a lot of either the city functions slow things down, or the entire process set in by zoning of limiting, where someone might want to build a 30-unit apartment building, you get a neighborhood opposition or whatever else, and then that results in only, say, a half dozen townhomes getting built. So we're seeing a lot of that kind of hitting, where when we have this combination, rents tend to rise, where, when we look at other cities, places where you see a lot of apartment units get built, you start to see rents actually fall. And we've seen this happen in places like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Sarasota, Florida, Boise, Idaho. All in recent years have seen apartment units increase in the supply by 10 to 20%. And as a result, you start seeing rents actually falling. Whereas in a lot of cities, a lot of states where you do not see the supply of housing go up, rents continue to go up more and more.
I think one of the best illustrations of how bad Pennsylvania restrictions on building can be is when you wrote about data from this U.S. Census Bureau that showed an apartment building with 2 to 4 units in Pennsylvania needs in the Northeast, I should say, needs 17 months to get built compared to 11 months in the South. So there's certainly some policy problems, probably both at the city and state level, I would assume, that really make it hard in this region to build multi-housing units quickly, right? Or is this something that is not restricted to apartment buildings?
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue for apartment buildings and single-family housing as well, but it's definitely a statewide issue. We've seen attention put on this from state Republicans and state Democrats, who last year both held separate committee hearings to talk about this issue and really talk about the need to really boost supply. So I think we're seeing legislators on both sides of the aisle realize this is a bigger problem. This is not simply a simple problem either. It's not a situation where Philadelphia is not building enough, but Pittsburgh is, or Allentown is. This is not a question of urban places versus suburban and rural. Everywhere, it seems, is not really building enough. I do think there's a major role here of local planning decisions, of restrictions put through zoning rules, or through a lack of inspectors, or just city inefficiency, where we're not getting, these basic permits out, we're not getting these inspections done quickly enough. And that really slows things down, because that really can be a deciding factor of whether a builder puts up, 2 houses or 6 houses, puts up a half dozen townhomes or 50 apartment units. And the more that we restrict the supply, the more we will see rents going up. We've seen since the pandemic some rent stabilization here and there, or at least of rent increases slowing down. But when you look at a city like Philadelphia, where you have so many people who are either just on the poverty line or just hanging on to a lower middle class income level, rent is a huge burden for them. Housing prices are a huge burden. And the more that we ignore this problem, the worse it will get in 10, 15, 20 years.
It's certainly a symptom of a broader economic challenge that Pennsylvania faces. If people can't afford to live here because they don't have jobs that pay, they're certainly going to go somewhere else. So to keep up with this story and more, go to thecentersquare.com. For Anthony Hennon, I'm Kristen Smith. Please subscribe and thanks for listening.
Knowledge is power, and you deserve to know what happens in your state government. That's why the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation is bringing you straight news journalism through the Center Square, reporting on state authorities and publishing stories that show where your money goes and who spends it. By supporting the Center Square, you can track politicians' use of taxpayer money and demand transparency from elected officials. This is how we can equip everyday Americans to hold their government accountable. Become a supporter of Franklin today at franklinnews.org/donate.